Hello there guys, you're listening to Ebird Online and I'm back with another video, and today I'm going to be doing my long awaited video on the validity of the Kalani Asuelu storyline. So I'm going to do a very quick review of the action this week. Not too much happened with regard to Kalani and Asuelu, but then what I really want to talk about is how true is this storyline. So there are lots of stories swirling around the internet at the moment saying this whole storyline is completely fake, and one of Asuelu's sisters has said that Asuelu does give money to the family and the whole storyline was fake and it was drummed up by producers, and she's getting oodles and oodles of cash from Asuelu. And she's also claiming she has receipts to prove the fact that this is fake. And so at the moment everybody's lapping this story up and saying, oh, it's all fake, but not the Ebird. So I'm going to give you the 6 reasons why I think this storyline is actually true and why I think Asuelu's older sister is actually making these claims. Very quickly before we start, if you haven't done so already, please press the red subscribe button and subscribe to my channel for regular videos. And you can also catch me on Twitter at Ebird99. And please, if you like the video and you appreciate these discussions, please don't forget to press the like button. It does make a massive difference to my analytics. So first up, I'm going to do a very quick recap, and we see Kalani in a hotel room. What's happened? Well, the story goes something like this. Kalani and Karine were talking crap about Asuelu's mum and sister. Surprise, surprise. And Asuelu was listening at the door. A massive fight ensued. Karine went home. Kalani and the 2 babies went to a hotel. And Asuelu went to stay with mum and Tammy at their apartment. They only charged him $95 for the night. So we first meet up with Kalani and she's in the hotel room and she's talking to her mum on Skype. And she explains to her mum part of what happened and that there was a massive argument. And she said to her mum, I just don't want to be married anymore. And her mum said, well, you've got to think about things. You have 2 young boys. You have to try every avenue to try and make it work. And she said, did you have problems with daddy when you first got married? And she said, yeah, we sometimes still have problems now. That's why I'm saying you need to speak to somebody and see if you can work things out. And Kalani said, well, I think I want to go and see a therapist. But if that doesn't work, I'm out, I'm over. I can't be this unhappy. And she's extremely tearful and she looks absolutely broken. And the next time we meet up with Kalani, she's sitting on the hotel bed and Asuelu's by her side. And the Ebird's wondering, what's Asuelu doing there? But Kalani fills us in. She tells us today is Valentine's Day. So Asuelu turned up with balloons at my hotel and acted as if nothing had happened. And she literally can't believe that he wants to brush the whole thing under the carpet. After unsuccessfully asking for hugs and kisses, Asuelu tries to explain from his point of view what the problem was. And basically he's saying he doesn't like the fact that Kalani and her sister were both talking crap about Tammy and the mum, and that ostensibly it's nothing to do with her sister, he doesn't want her to get involved. Kalani tells him he's not used to strong women. After witnessing the events of yesterday, I think you'll find he probably is. The Ebird's willing to bet his childhood was probably something like WWE. And I have lots and lots of adjectives for Tammy, but unfortunately I've already used weak on Asuelu. And so Asuelu said, your dad's told you not to listen to your husband, and I think you agree with that. And Kalani said, we're not understanding each other, and I think that we need to see a therapist in order to try and help our relationship. Dr. Kirk, we got another client for you. And then she explained to Asuelu what a therapist was. He said he'd never heard of it before, but he thinks it's a good idea. And I was pleasantly surprised thinking, good, he's starting to be mature. Ebird, you really are a dimwit. How many times can your stupid ass get tricked by the same person? Asuelu is not capable of maturity, and unfortunately his immaturity is reinforced by his stupidity. So of course, to the producers, Asuelu said, I don't really want to go, I don't see the point, but it's obviously important to Kalani, so I'm going to do it. And I worry because I know very well it's not the right attitude to have in order to get things sorted out. And so they drove back to the airport, and when they arrive, Kalani puts her Valentine's Day balloons straight into the bin. And in a horrible metaphor for their relationship, Kalani has 3 suitcases and both children, and Asuelu is carrying just 2 suitcases as they enter the airport. And some women make fools out of men, but Asuelu is a do-it-yourself kind of guy. It's the only thing on which we can rely on him never to fail. And Kalani tells producers at the airport, I love Asuelu, but I love my boys more. And at this point, I don't want to be married to him. And she pretty much looks like she's absolutely done. She seems to have clocked out of this relationship. And I'm not really sure if this relationship can be put back together at this point. So what does the Ebird make from all of this? Well, I think this is the straw that broke the camel's back. I don't think it's just about this argument. I think throughout the whole relationship, the way that Asuelu handles situations is in a very childish manner. And I think Kalani's realising, actually, he's not getting better. Just when I think he's getting better, when I think he's starting to understand, he takes a massive giant leap backwards. And I think this is true. As I said last week, he either runs away or he calls her names. And obviously this week he's saying, don't talk about our problems to your family. Of course she's going to. Who else is she going to talk to if not her sister? And their problems aren't just confined to the arguments. It's Asuelu's general thought process. He's very misogynistic and he thinks women belong in the kitchen. Asuelu, that's where the knives are. But I also think for this argument in particular, here's the main problem. Firstly, I don't think Kalani's got it across to Asuelu properly exactly how the mum and sister were. Unless you actually saw that, you wouldn't really take it on and believe how bad it was in terms of what was said, and also the general derisory way in which they spoke about Asuelu as this vessel who's supposed to just give money to them. And so it was very easy for it to become a very silly argument about who's the hardest out of Kalani and Tammy. But I have given this situation quite some thought, and I thought about my own partner. And if I were to say to him, somebody threatened to attack me, and somebody shouted and screamed at me, I would expect him to say, my sister did what? Wait 1 minute whilst I call her, and I would expect him to tear strips off her, 1 for upsetting me, and 2 for letting the whole thing get so heated and so nasty. But what I would also really like is to be believed. So when she was telling Asuelu, your sister tried to attack me, and your mum and sister said they don't care about the kids, they just want money, and they're still demanding $1,000, it would have been nice if she were completely believed. And we know that she wasn't, because outside to producers, Asuelu actually said, I think Kalani's got the wrong end of the stick. No, Kalani hasn't got the wrong end of the stick. She's got exactly the right end of the stick, and the stick's being used to beat her over her back. And you're very lucky that Kalani is Kalani and Kalani is not Ebird, Asuelu, because if it was Ebird, the stick would be being used to thwack you over the head, to knock some sense into you. So I personally think that that is the main point. She has no backup whatsoever from Asuelu. So guys, let me know what you think. Do you think there's any way back for this couple? Could therapy possibly help them? And what would you expect from your partner if you came back and told them that scenario? So please let me know in comments down below. But now I want to discuss the validity of this whole storyline. So many of my subscribers have said to me this week and last week, this is all fake, Ebird. This storyline was scripted by TLC, and there are receipts to prove it. And so let's talk about these receipts. And so, you know, when people talk to the Ebird about receipts, I look at the burden of proof. So it's for the person making the allegation to actually prove this is true, either beyond a reasonable doubt or in the balance of probability at the very least. I mean, I would like incontrovertible evidence, but sometimes that's a little too much to ask. Any facts given have to satisfy a certain standard to be considered proof and to be considered receipts. So one of Asuelu's sisters, who lives in Samoa still, has alleged this week that this particular storyline is entirely scripted by TLC. And she lets us know that Asuelu sends money to his family. He sends so much money, we have to lock the house and put the money in the fridge to keep it cool. And I got all this information from website soapdirt.com, and I'm going to link that website underneath in information. It actually has loads of great information on all of these shows and all the different characters. And she says, and I directly quote, let me tell the world, I'm the only one who benefits from that TV show. They just act only, but they send the money over to Samoa for me and my dad to spend it all. So keep going, family. You all make me happy. Let the world throw the rocks and allow me to throw it back. Hurry up, guys. Father's Day's around the corner. Peace out, haters. I love my family. And she's shown us her Facebook site, which shows MoneyGram transfers from both Tammy and Asuelu as proof that they send money. And so let us break this down for a moment. So these so-called receipts, in my mind, are not receipts at all. If a receipt is the word of somebody on Instagram or on Facebook, then we've absolutely no need to laugh at conspiracy theorists anymore. Allegations of the end of the world must be true. Every single famous person is in the Illuminati because it appears on Facebook. So here's a screenshot of what's written on Soap Dirt. And you can see here it says money on the way. So what's really interesting about this is the dates are for now, August the 3rd, August the 4th. This was filmed at least 6 months ago before COVID because everyone's travelling around freely. So simply proving that money is being sent now means very little. And the second point I want to make is we always knew that Asuelu did send money. We weren't too sure about Tammy, but it seems that she sent something. But we always knew Asuelu did send money because Kalani and Asuelu both said previously he sends money every time he speaks to his family. They want money, but they always want more than they want to give. So they always give some sums, but we've never known what they give. And I don't think they've given anything like $1,000 that they were actually asking for. So there was never really any dispute that money was being sent. The dispute was how much should be sent, when and what for. And then also from these so-called receipts, the amounts have been completely covered up. So why ever would this be? I can tell you why it would be, because the amounts aren't for $1,000 or anywhere near. It's probably for $100 or $200. I feel fairly sure that if they'd been sending $1,000 every month, we would know because she would have actually just shown that. And so as far as I'm concerned, these receipts show us very, very little, and they certainly don't prove that the whole storyline is fake. Now you guys know that the Ebird likes to call TLC out whenever she thinks things are either fake or exaggerated. And so I'm not just going to sit here and say, well, this doesn't prove anything. Let's analyse potential motives. Who has a reason to say it's all fake? And does the person who's claiming it's all fake have first-hand knowledge of this? Or are they getting their information from somebody else? So we pretty much know who has a reason to invoke some sort of it's all fake defence. And so at this point, ASUELU'S family are about as popular as ISIS. Even in my comments alone, usually there are some people that are pro a family and some people against. I think it's probably about 99% pro Kalani, anti-ASUELU'S family. But it seems like for once everybody's of one mind. ASUELU'S family leave a little to be desired. And so of course they have a reason to come out fighting. So his sister, all the way in Samoa, is the person saying it's all scripted, it's all fake. Well, of course she is, because she knows her family are being made to look terrible and they're being dragged through these internet streets. And worldwide, there are only two defences if you look bad on reality TV. Number one, it was edited badly. Number two, it was all scripted and fake. Take your pick, guys, take your pick. But I genuinely believe this to be damage limitation. So let's have a think. Who else has said, we got a bad edit? Keep the change, Ed is one. Tania from Tania and Syngin said last season that she got a bad edit. David from David and Lana. Sarah, Michael's ex-wife from Michael and Juliana. Again, she said it was a bad edit. And then Jasmine and Blake, they also said it's a bad edit. They're showing our relationship in a way that isn't true. Now that may well be true, but a bad edit is very, very different from completely fake storylines. But we as viewers know that in all of these instances, there was at least some truth to what was being said. So let's imagine for a second that these storylines are all fake and they're all scripted. Wow, they did an amazing job. The TLC producers had to ensure several things to make it actually work and to be really realistic. So the first thing was the build-up. We've had not one but 2 seasons of ASUELU'S family consistently asking for money. The second thing is, none of ASUELU'S family, notwithstanding that some of them were in America at the time, showed up for his wedding. That's not normal behaviour of a family. And to my mind, it shows that his mum and sister don't care about him massively. And my next point is, ASUELU'S mum speaks only broken English. If it was all scripted, she did an amazing job. She remembered all of her lines and she acted her little socks off. Not just at the restaurant and at the goat park, but also at the Pierside showdown. Now there are 2 issues which make people think this whole scene was faked. And the first thing was Tammy trying to pounce on Kalani. And the second thing was the statement from ASUELU'S mum, I don't care about the grandkids. So let's analyse both of these things. When Tammy lunged at Kalani, she was able to be held back by ASUELU'S mum. And lots of people think that this was faked. And to be fair, that's as may be. However, I've personally seen lots of times where people actually don't want to fight, but they want to scare the person. Very often people try to scare another person by saying, I would go for you, but I'm being held back. If only I wasn't being held back. That happens all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that that wasn't a true part of the storyline. And again, great acting by Tammy because she looked like a raging bull. Also, Tammy, why would you make yourself look so bad on camera? You have children of school age, so where would your benefit be? And what about ASUELU'S mum saying, I don't care about the kids? Again, I've thought a lot about this, and I don't believe even if scriptwriters said, here's what I want you to say, you would go along with it. I just don't. However, I am prepared to concede there's another explanation for this. And low-key, it wouldn't surprise me at all if when ASUELU'S mum was saying, Kalani, I don't care about the kids, I just want my money, she may have just meant it as in, kids aside, I just want my money, or never mind about the kids, I want my money. Not as in, I personally don't care about my grandkids, but i.e. another way of saying, Don't use the kids as an excuse. You know that they will be looked after anyway. I still need $1,000 a month. She could have meant it in that way. It didn't seem like that, but it seems entirely possible to me. But what doesn't seem possible is that she never thought about saying it herself and she allowed producers to get her to say it. I don't know, I just don't buy it. The next issue, which makes this an unlikely scenario, is the fact that when Asuelu's mum said this, Kalani would have had to be complicit, and I don't think there's any possible way that she would have had her children disparaged on national TV by their grandmother for money, for fame, for anything. She would know very well that in the future this might pop up and be psychologically detrimental to those babies. Kalani just would not be complicit in any such plan, even if Tammy and Asuelu's mum were. She's far too much of an earth mother and a decent human being to sell her kids out for a TLC dollar. That's just the way I see it. And my next reason for thinking this is not scripted is the reaction of Kalani to the whole scenario. So if you look when she got home and she was talking to her sister, she broke down. She was trying to stop herself from bursting into tears. Again at the hotel when she was talking to her mum, she had to stop herself from crying. And then again at the airport when she was saying, I think this is done. I don't know if we can retrieve this relationship. She was crying and it looked so realistic. I don't believe she could cry so convincingly and so to order on so many different occasions. And I think these tears and emotions were entirely real and genuine. And another reason that people were saying that this was a fake storyline was because Asuelu has been dancing with his mum on TikTok and having a whale of a time. And to be honest, it doesn't surprise me at all. Asuelu is very family oriented. And so I think regardless of what his mum says and regardless of how his mum behaves, he's always going to gravitate back there. How many of us can say, if your mum said or did something which was out of pocket, absolutely terrible, you would cut them off forever? Things can be explained away quite easily, and even more easily when you're talking about somebody speaking in a second language. And it's also very possible that Asuelu didn't see any of this until last week when we did. So the fact that he's still in contact and still cool with his mum means just that he's a son who loves his mum. It doesn't mean that this is all faked and it couldn't possibly be true. And also Asuelu has now got access to more money. Apparently he's got a Cameo account, which if you don't know is a website in which the general public can get their YouTube favourites or their reality TV stars or celebrities to give them a birthday shout out or some sort of message. And Asuelu's currently on there and is charging £50 per message. I think that's about $70 or so. And in addition to this, he's just got a new job and is now teaching Simone dancing for a dance company and is also going around America doing exhibitions. So I imagine he's making more money than he was at the health food shop previously. So these are potentially more reasons as to why he may be sending money home more now than he was previously. And my final reason to doubt that this is all scripted is that everybody's got a story to tell. So since I've been a YouTuber, which admittedly is not very long, about 13 months now, pretty much every single month I've had somebody or other email me and give me an exclusive. And it's usually all of the negative points about somebody on one of these shows. And it's my belief that just because somebody tells you something is true, there's no particular reason to believe it, especially when you do not know the person. And so one of my most memorable ones was about Avery from last season, Ash and Avery. And somebody sent me court documents and lots of details saying Avery was a terrible mother. And the person that sent them to me was very disparaging about her and really tried to convince me to put some of the information into my reviews. And I refused for two reasons. One, because a child was involved, mainly. And the second reason was I'd only heard one side of this story. And I was sent alleged court documents. And I studied law at university in England, but I have no idea what American court documents would look like. And even if they were real, they could be fake or just full of lies. And my point with all of this is, people will always give you written evidence to try and convince you this is true. Just because something's written down, it doesn't make it any more valid than if someone just said it to you in the toilets of a nightclub. There's literally no more validity to it. So when I declined to break this so-called story, I was then told that they came from Avery's ex-partner, who was a lawyer. And I explained I only really talk about things that happen on the actual show, because I really don't want to go making all sorts of accusations unless I'm actually party to them. And also, in the absence of being able to verify any of the information, it's really remiss to actually just say it, because once you've said it, even if you're wrong and you have a retraction the following week, loads of people hear you say it and don't hear your retraction. So it could be extremely damaging to the person. But I also said, this is really strange to me because the girl that we're talking about is 12 or 13 years old. And obviously she's at school, her friends are going to hear about this or see this, and all of these allegations directly concern her. And I'm really glad I didn't say anything about this story, because it turns out it was very, very far from the truth. And the ex-husband, who's allegedly a lawyer, actually isn't a lawyer and is posing as one. So had I gone ahead and said it all, I would have been just basically repeating a one-sided story infused with lies and half-truths. And the reason I'm telling you this story is to prove that people always have an agenda when they're giving you information. And that's what I think Asuelu's sister has. I think she has her own agenda. And it's one, to prove, yes, they are getting money. And it's secondly to prove that my family's not really a terrible family. They're lovely people. It's all just scripted by the producers. So I'd say to anybody looking at this and believing it all, consider this. Why would you ever go along with a narrative that makes you look absolutely terrible and virtually inhuman? Why would you go along with that? What benefit could there be to you? Even if you were following a loose script by TLC, there would be no reason to say, I want to fight you, Kalani, and lunge at her. There would be no reason to say, I can't stand you, I hate you, and I don't care about my grandkids. There would be no reason to say that, because you would know if you love your grandkids, those words could never escape from your lips. So yes, it's fair to say the Ebird takes this with a massive pinch of salt. So for any fact to be believed, or for anything to be considered a receipt, it needs to satisfy one of the following. It needs to be beyond reasonable doubt, or it needs to be on the balance of probability. And I find with these so-called receipts, they're neither. But in this case we can see there's motive for making these allegations, and also the receipts have been partially redacted. As far as I'm concerned, any fact has to satisfy a certain standard to be considered proof. So for instance, if she'd have sent receipts of $1,000 per month dating back from last year, I would have said, this looks pretty shaky. But even if she'd done that, it could still be Asuelu sending money behind the back of Kalani. We really would never know if this was real or not. And between you and me, I'm quite sure that Asuelu does send money whenever he can without Kalani actually knowing, because he knows it will be a definite argument. So guys, I'd love you to weigh in and let me know what you think. Do you think this is an entirely fake storyline, just with great acting? Do you think it's semi-fake? Or do you think it's very probably a real storyline and Asuelu's family is just trying to do a little bit of damage control? That's definitely what I think, and they haven't shown me anything yet which is beyond a reasonable doubt, or even on the balance of probability. So please let me know in comments down below what you think, and I will be back very soon with another video. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you've yet to do so. You've been listening to Ebird Online. Ciao for now.